Oh, that sounds really nice, doesn't it? Now, that was PianoTeq, and this is version 7. This is their latest version of PianoTeq. And as you can see over here, I have chosen the C.Bechstein DG recording to play that sample with. Actually, I shouldn't say samples because PianoTeq has no samples. It's all physically modeled. Now, those of you who have known me through the years and seen my videos, you know I am not a big fan of software pianos, virtual pianos, any of that kind of stuff. I like it all in hardware. PianoTeq is the exception, and maybe Ravenscroft. Other than that, no. And the reason PianoTeq is so exceptional, everything is not just physical modeled, it is physically modeled perfectly. The algorithms they use just work. And as a result, everything is done so nicely and so accurately that PianoTeq has the endorsement of Steinway and Sons. And that was given last version, version 6. To get the endorsement from Steinway is a real accomplishment. And they did it. And you know Steinway does not give out endorsements lightly. So, and I believe they got a Bechstein endorsement too, as well as a Grotrian. So, I mean, you really can't beat it. So anyway, let's talk about PianoTeq 7 versus PianoTeq 6. What's new from 6 to 7? All right, so I guess the easiest way is to kind of show you. This is PianoTeq 7. You can see right there, this 7, PianoTeq 7 Pro. There is always 3 versions. There is Stage, Standard, and Pro. So Stage would be entry level just to get you into the product. So it's a step above the free. And then there's the standard version, which probably most people should be getting. If I could make a recommendation, a blanket recommendation, which I don't like doing, standard would probably be the way to go. For those who want the most control, definitely go with the Pro. All right, now let me go ahead and let's. This is in full screen mode right now. Let's reduce that. Okay. And the reason I do this is just to show you something. I'm going to pull up PianoTeq 6 right now, side by side. Okay. So here we have PianoTeq 6 and 7 side by side. So let's talk about what's different or new in PianoTeq 7. PianoTeq 6 didn't have a New York Steinway. That is new in PianoTeq 7. Oh, you can't really see that here. You'll see that in the menus. I mean, when you go to the menus here in 6, you'll see the different Steinways over here. Steinway D. Okay, and when you go over here to 7 and you look at the Steinway Ds, you see a New York Steinway. And of course, all the different kind of New York Steinways that you can choose from. So, and then of course they have the Hamburg, which is my favorite for now. That rotates. All right, and the other difference, if you look at this, they're identical pretty much. So as far as the interface goes, you don't have much difference from 6 to 7, but you do have, if you look over here, you have this word random so that you can get random values. Over here on 7, you'll see a dice. So that kind of implies shooting dice of random value. So it's the same thing, it's just a different way of displaying it, the word as opposed to the dice. But if you look up here, all right, you're going to see on 6, note edit, options, and help. And on 7, you're going to see note edit, and then all the way to the right, you'll see options and help, because in between note edit and options, they've added what they're calling morph/layer. So when you press on that, you can get into a morphing or a layering menu. This is something that PianoTeq has not had before. Layering, which is really cool, and morphing, which is even cooler. So I'm going to get into both of those in a second. I just wanted to show you that. And now I can go back here and we can implement a full screen. Okay, that should be better. Now, in addition to the New York Steinway, as far as sounds go, all piano models have actually been slightly improved. It's a subtle improvement. A lot of people may not notice it, and there are going to be people that do notice it. So what they've done is, now you know piano strings vibrate. Actually, any string instrument, the strings are going to vibrate. And when people think of a vibrating string, they think of it vibrating from left to right. Okay? Which is cool. Mental picture in your mind for that. But in actual reality, the string actually vibrates all over the place. It can be in a circular fashion. So they've taken that into account and made changes accordingly, physically modeling that. So now when you play piano instruments, you're going to hear a slight improvement. All right, but the main things now is in that new thing that I showed you right here, morph/layer. So let's click on that. And here we go. When you press on that, you get a submenu that gives you a choice of morph or layer. You can't have both at the same time. Actually, you can, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's start first by choosing layers. And you can have up to 3 layers here. So we're going to start with, well, just take the first one that we already have, because I like that anyway, the C.Bechstein DG. So okay, so that's just the Bechstein piano with nothing else added. So now over here, we're going to click and we get to choose what we want to layer it with. So let's say we want to layer it with something like, oh, I don't know. Let's try a Glockenspiel. Original. Okay. All right. So we can see here on the actual Bechstein piano, we have 100% of it, in other words, full volume, and we have 50% volume on the Glockenspiel. So let's increase that to 100. All right. That's something that I didn't take into account. The Glock doesn't go, it's actually the physical instrument has its range is a lot higher. Up here. From here on. So from here on, you are hearing the Glock and you are hearing the Bechstein. And it's 100% on both. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit less. Let's do the 50 or so. Okay. And I think it's still just a little bit too loud, so let's go a little bit even lower. Okay, now we can tell it's there, but it's not overpowering, so we have mostly the piano and the Glock. Alright, so that's really cool. Actually, we can go probably a little bit lower in volume and get away with that too. All right, so a crude example, but that is an example. Now we can go ahead and add another layer as well. Let's choose something like concert harp. Okay. So now I have 3 instruments layered. I've got the Glockenspiel, the Bechstein piano, and this concert harp. You can hear that. If we go more harp, all right, maybe even more. And of course, to hear with the Glockenspiel, it has to be within the range of the Glockenspiel. And you can experiment with the different volumes on each. And just like if you're used to doing working with DAWs or mixers or editors, the M and the S stands for mute and solo. So of course, if you just want to hear the piano by itself, you press S for solo. And it mutes the other two. And if I were to do the opposite, just press mute instead of solo, then I'd get everything but the piano that's going to be muted out. So here we're hearing the harp and the Glock. And we're doing it that way, then we might want to change the volume again a little bit, a little more harp. So anyway, you get the idea. And from here, you can go ahead and rename it, save or save as, and so on and so forth. Now, freeze, that's the same kind of thing that they've had in previous versions. Quickly, freeze, basically, when you're changing values on anything, you're choosing another instrument, and basically there's going to be certain parameters that you don't want to change, like maybe keyboard velocity, that kind of thing. So you want to freeze those so that they don't change. They are frozen in place. And here's the kind of things that you can change: equalizer, mallet bounce, a whole bunch of different settings under action settings, that kind of thing. And you can do that for all 3 of the instruments that we chose to layer. All right. So we can clear that. And again, like I said, we're limited to 3 layers. So if I try to add another one at this point, nothing happens. And we can choose random values, that kind of stuff. So let's clear that. And now, let's go back over here. We're going to choose the morph/layers again. And instead of layering, we're going to choose morphing. And even though they're slightly similar, they are completely different. Layering just means you're taking instrument 1, instrument 2, possibly instrument 3, and you're playing all 3 at the same time, and you're balancing out the volumes by adjusting the volume control on each of those. That's what layering is. But when you get to morphing, that's different. You can create instruments that do not exist in the physical world. They cannot exist in the physical world. And that's what makes it so much fun. So let's choose for instrument 1. We've got the piano again, okay, the Bechstein. And what would be a good instrument to have that morphed with? Well, let's just pick something quick. Not another piano, because that's too close. Let's, just to be funny, let's try a toy piano. Original. So now we have a morph between a Bechstein piano and a toy piano. And rather than having individual volumes controlled for each one, we're going to control how much of what instrument gets what. So between these 2 instruments, here is a gain level here to dynamically change the morphing amount. So as I go more towards the Bechstein, we're going to have less of the toy piano. And when I get to 100%, it's just the Bechstein. Okay? And the converse is true. When I go over here and go all the way down, I'll have all toy piano and no Bechstein. And as I get between the two, then we have more of the morph. Now you can tell both. All right, that is so cool. And the reason that's cool, this is like a unique instrument that combines both physically. Now, this can't be done in the real world, but it is done here with physical modeling. That is so cool. You can create instruments that just do not exist in the physical world, and you've got an actual instrument here that sounds exactly the way it's supposed to sound if the two could be combined. And again, the whole reason that is possible is because we don't use samples, or Modart does not use samples in their PianoTeq software. It's all physical modeling. And I just love it. And you can see why I love PianoTeq and not so much a fan of sample-based stuff. All right, now I can go ahead and add a third one to morph with. So just for fun, let's go ahead and do that. Add a third ingredient. They're calling the different initial instruments ingredients, and the final product is a recipe. You're basically creating a recipe out of ingredients to give you a final sound. All right, so for this third one, let's go ahead and choose a Celtic harp. All right, look at where my thing is over here. I'm going to bring it down more towards the harp. All right, so that's different. Now, here we can go even further. We can go ahead and smooth it out a little bit. And as you go ahead and adjust this part over here between how much of each instrument you want more of or less of, something interesting is happening here. Look over here, and you'll see as I go towards the Bechstein, this is where I have all the parameters for the Bechstein that I can go ahead and adjust. I can adjust the tuning, I can adjust the voicing, I can adjust the design, and so on and so forth, okay? And as I move this towards the toy piano, watch what happens. See, now I can go ahead and change the voicing or other parameters on the toy piano. So here I can adjust the tuning and the voicing and the design. And as I go further on down towards the Celtic harp, then see, I get the tuning parameters for the Celtic harp. Tuning, voicing, and design. And it doesn't have to be these three. I mean, you can choose anything like a drum. So it's interesting. You could play around with this all day long and create instruments that can't physically exist, but they do exist here, and the result is phenomenal. This is great for sound designers, and if you know nothing about sound design, just experimenting with this and see these things happening before your very eyes. What happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? And it just is so cool to work with. And then when you're all done, you can go ahead and flatten everything out so that you have a final instrument over here. And from there, you can go ahead and save that morph, give it a name so that you can recall it anytime. Once you have that saved, you can use that like any other instrument and bring that in as an instrument to layer with something else, which is also really cool. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you, let's go back to a piano. New York Steinway. I don't want to morph here. I just want the piano and just to give you an idea of what the New York Steinway D sounds like. It's really, really amazing. So that's pretty much it as far as what PianoTeq 7 has that PianoTeq 6 did not, and what is new and what you can do with it. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to show you. While we have a piano up here, now with layers and stuff like that, it's basically you're layering one instrument on top of another. But let's say you want to split somewhere. They don't have a split point here. So you can't say, I want this part for the piano and this part for an organ or something like that. But what you can do is you can go into your note edit right over here. Thanks. So I can go ahead and draw say up to here. So you can see up here is louder and up here is lower. So I can have a portion of this at a little bit lesser volume than the rest of the keyboard. This is the way to fine tune it. But if you want to go ahead and move them all down to the bottom, you'll notice I don't have anything here. See? Just on top to the right of this point here. So now when I go ahead and bring in a layer, let's choose a layer. And for that second one, let's bring in a vibraphone, a tremolo vibraphone. So I have that down here, and let's go ahead and actually make that a little bit louder. So to the right of that kind of split point that we did over here, starting here, we have both the piano and the vibraphone together. And down here, since we basically turned off the piano, we have just the vibraphone. And of course, we need to adjust the volumes of these different things. That's better. So I think you can see the potential in this. This is so cool. So when I saw the release of PianoTeq 7 and everything it can do, I was on it right away. And I have spent a lot of time working with this. It's so cool. I highly recommend it. Now, this is nothing new, but I want to go over the 3 types of PianoTeq that you can buy. There is, let me pull out my list and we'll bring that up on the screen at the same time. There's PianoTeq Stage, PianoTeq Standard, and PianoTeq Pro. So let's go over this real quickly so that you can see the differences between all of them. And basically, PianoTeq Stage does everything is checked off in that first column. You get 2 instrument packs with it. With the Standard, you get 3, and with PianoTeq Pro, you get 4. And you can buy more instrument packs as you go along. If you want a little bit more capability, you go with the Standard. And I'm not going to read everything off, but you can basically go through and see everything that's checked is what you'll be getting in the Standard version as opposed to the Stage. And if you go to the third column, everything is checked off. And you can see there's only 3 other things that are checked off in the Pro version that are not in the Standard version. And that's note per note editing on all other physical parameters that you didn't have with the other note per note edit. And that would be right above that. It says note per note edit, volume, detune, attack, and envelope. So if you had that with volume, that kind of thing, you would be able to do what I just showed you and basically mute or turn off the piano from a certain point that we'll call a split point on down. That way you can have a layer and a split point. So really cool. And you can see everything else on that chart just basically glancing at it. And that's pretty much all I wanted to get across today. I think this product has been tremendous. I started out reviewing this with, I believe, version 4 or 5. I think it was 5, then 6, then 7. This is not a company that's going to go ahead and come out with a new version every year or every 6 months. No, they're going to come out with a new version as soon as they've perfected the new version. This is not a company that rushes to get a product out just for the sake of getting a new product out. They do put a lot of work into this, a lot of care, and a lot of effort. And it shows. It definitely shows with their product. So, I hope you've found this enjoyable and educational. Piano Man Chuck, peace out. Thanks for watching.